Okay, welcome to this week's Chen Chat. So, date today, 22nd of September 2025. The weeks just roll on, really. Well, they seem to roll on from my perspective, certainly. So what we're going to talk about this week. So we'll just wait to get a few people logged in to the live. We're streaming on Facebook and YouTube, and there's generally a few people that have questions, ideas, things that we want to talk about, things that we can answer. So thank you for joining us, folks. Obviously, we can comment, or if you guys ask comments, join comments, ask questions, we can try our best to provide some answers to anything that you talk about. So this week, we're going to talk about caregivers, basically carers and caregivers. So we had a quick chat this morning, myself, Chen, and Jane, to go over our normal weekly choice of different topics. We always try and find something that we haven't talked about before, something that hopefully is engaging and interesting, and something that should kind of meet everyone's expectation in terms of what people are interested to hear and to talk about, certainly from a spiritual perspective, really. So certainly from my perspective, we think about caregivers. We all know someone that is a caregiver. It's one of those jobs that kind of, I guess, is hidden in society to a certain degree. There's so many people that are helping or looking after other people. Lots of people work in the caring industry, hospitals, care homes, mental health establishments, that kind of thing. So everyone knows someone, really. It's a caregiver. And even if you're looking after your own family, your own friends, people that have got dementia, older people in our kind of family circles, or people with long-term illness. So I think caregivers are those people almost that kind of get missed, I think, in our kind of spectrum, really, because they're always there. They're always kind of helping other people. And most caregivers are pretty sort of spiritually sensitive and empathic. They're here to help other people. They generally put other people before themselves. So when we think about a caregiver, that's the kind of picture that comes up in my mind, really. Somebody that is basically putting other people before themselves in one way or another, and whether that be just from a family basis or, of course, as part of a profession. So the caregiver is a sacred role, really, I think, because, again, as we all get older, we all have problems or illnesses. We need someone to look after us. And that generally starts with people that are close to us in our families, sort of family and friends, those sorts of people. And then, of course, it kind of moves outwards. If you need more care, then, of course, you end up having professional carers either coming into your space, so they come into your family, your house, your property, or, of course, you go to an establishment like a hospital, care home, rest home, or somewhere to revive and try to get better, really. So I'm just going to say hi to Miriam. Good to Monkey Ritter. Good to have you here, Miriam. Thanks for joining. So we're talking about caregivers this week, basically, and that was the kind of topic of conversation. So the caregiver role, I think, is a sacred role. It kind of gives time and energy and basically love in service to other people. And it's quite a kind of noble act, I think, from a spiritual and soul perspective. And also probably quite a heavy burden. Most caregivers that I know struggle with themselves. They don't tend to put too much time into their own replenishment, really. Lots of them are tired, exhausted. The money always seems to be the minimum pay, really. So people that work in care homes are generally working long hours for kind of small amounts of pay, which is odd, really. I guess it's kind of a picture of our society, whereby we've got people that run corporations that do nothing, really, and help no one, and they earn vast amounts of money. And then we've got people at the other end, like caregivers, that are helping people, putting themselves behind other people to help them, to look after them, to nurture them, and they get paid the least. So I think society perhaps needs a kind of rebalance in the way that we see work and we see jobs. And I think it would be interesting as time goes by to kind of change the reflection of what is actually considered to be a good job against what's considered to be a bad job. At the moment, we are looking at good jobs being money making, finance, and bad jobs basically looking after people, carers. I think Miriam's just talked about teachers, daycare workers. These people are essential in our society because we're all going to get old. I'm aging. We all start to notice that our joints start to creak, and we think one day we'll need caring. We'll need someone to look after us. And I think that role should be seen to be a really important role, as opposed to a mundane, lowly paid, kind of unskilled role. Because of course it's skill, and it's a skilled role, and you're looking after people, you're connecting to people on a daily basis, you're talking to people that have mental health problems, people that have dementia, those sorts of things. They're incredibly time consuming, and they're in quite a vulnerable place. And I think it's a shame that our society doesn't really value those sorts of jobs particularly, really, compared to some corporation that is basically faceless to most of us and just is designed to make money in whatever way that they do. So Jane's just confirming this sounds good, which is always nice. Always good to get a sound check before I continue talking for hours and nobody can hear exactly what I'm saying, or sounds bad. So if you guys are caregivers, anyone on the live, if you've got questions or observations, drop them in the comments. It'd be good for you to provide us some feedback, some information in terms of what you think about the conversation that we're kind of having today, really. So I think one of the sayings that we always kind of think about is you cannot pour light into another person if your own flame is flickering. So you kind of need to look after yourself. So caregivers need to be service to self first before they look after other people. And most caregivers don't do that. I'd imagine most caregivers are kind of running in that kind of exhausted, tired, fatigued state most of the time. And of course, if they're not careful, then they end up being the same. They end up needing their own care. And I think we certainly know people that have worked in different places like hospitals. We know people that have been in mental health establishments looking after inpatients. They become so tired and fatigued and affected by the things that go on in some of those environments that they then become impatients themselves, which is kind of worth thinking about, really, from that perspective, that again, we need to kind of manage our energy. We need to protect ourselves and look after ourselves. And that really is what this kind of conversation today is designed to be about. How do we look after ourselves? How do caregivers protect their energy from the people that they're connecting to, the people they're looking after, the people they're working with on a daily basis? So hi Mimi, good to have you here, and also Ruth. Hi Ruth, glad to have you on the live chat. So we're talking about caring, caregivers, and basically the care industry, I guess, really. So in terms of, from my perspective, so what would a caregiver do on a daily basis from a spiritual perspective to kind of protect their energy from the people that they're working with? So again, most of the spiritual conversations we have generally come back to the same thing. So for most people, waking up, cleansing, clearing. So we're doing the physical, have a shower, clear your physical body, clear your energy, that kind of thing. And then ground yourself. So begin the day by grounding yourself into planet Earth. So you can do that in a number of ways. You can visualize yourself having grounding roots that leave your feet, connecting into Mother Earth. So it's kind of a spiritual aspect. You can walk outside in bare feet. You can walk around on the grass. You can basically grab a tree, do some tree hugging, which grounds your energy quite quickly, quite nicely. So just some form of grounding that anchors your roots and that spiritual vibration of yours back into the planet is a starting point really for everybody, I think, and certainly for people that are working in that care industry. So protected bubbles of light. So before entering a room for someone that you care for, and obviously before leaving your house as well, really, again, imagine or visualize a bubble of light. You can pick any color, white, gold, rose gold, violet, whatever color kind of comes to mind, and just visualize yourself walking into that bubble of light and stand in there. It's not separate to you, it's part of you, it's part of your protection. So put yourself in a protected bubble, and this basically moves your energy into a protected space. And then we can think about things like setting boundaries, even like gentle boundaries. So basically, it's not kind of selfish to ask if you're a weary caregiver. Just put a thought out to your guides, to your spiritual team. I need some help. I could do with some energy. I need a pause. I need to rest. I need some rejuvenation. So your spirit guide and your team are working with you continually, and they're always with you. So just putting that thought out, is a great thing to do. I need some help today. It's going to be a difficult day. I'm tired. And then boundaries. what will I do today and what won't I do? What is my job? When people ask me for help, where is my boundary? Just think about your own boundaries and where you want those boundaries to be, certainly from a professional perspective, really. And then when you're actually working with people, you're working, generally caregivers are room to room. If you're working in a hospital, you're in other people's energy fields all day long. You're obviously in visitors' energy fields all day long. So you're continually connecting to other people and you're continually picking up on their energy. So at the end of the day, you want to kind of release that energy, let go. So maybe come home, maybe a new routine, jump in the shower again, have a kind of physical wash, sprinkle some sea salt in some water, and you can obviously use that to clear yourself. Again, sea salt is something that we kind of recommend, the fine sea salt, to sprinkle around your bed, around your room, around your house. Again, it just clears stagnant, stale, negative energy. So at the end of the day, wash your hands. Do like a little 2 or 3 minute recentering. So find yourself, go up to your bedroom, lie on your bed for 2 minutes and just literally close your eyes, visualize yourself releasing the worries, the stress, the negativity from the day. Invoke your guides, ask them to clear you as well. And just let all of that negativity kind of disappear from your day. And this is something that everyone can do. We're talking a few minutes. You don't need to spend hours meditating. Just literally lie on your bed, rest, breathe in and breathe out a few times. Again, put yourself inside your bubble of light, back in your protected space, and call upon those spirit guides, ancestors, helpers, your higher self, anything that's going to protect with you or put you in a protected space. So just simply kind of ask the questions, walk with me and protect me, restore and rejuvenate me. Just those thoughts make a difference because you're verbalizing what you want to happen. And that, of course, is a good thing from that perspective. So I think caregivers and people in that space need to just think about protecting their own energy from other people and the people they're working with on a daily basis, really. We think about dementia, those sorts of things, and those sorts of illnesses. They cloud people's personalities, and the soul for the one that you care for still recognizes you. They still know who you are. They may struggle to remember who you are, but at soul or spirit level, they still know you're there. You're there to give help. You're there to give protection in a compassionate way. So protect your own mind, nurture your spirit, and your service flows then with kind of a greater ease and understanding, really. And I think that's quite a good reminder for all of us, really, that people that are working with people in those kind of vulnerable places, the job that they do is essential to our society. It's essential to our friends, our family, and our loved ones. And I think it's sometimes this reflection that we stop and we think about who they are and what do they do. I mean, sometimes they're called angels. I've been in care homes before. We've seen people that are coming to end of life that we've been invoked to help with and to spend time with in their last moments of death, really, or just before they pass. And it's quite a humbling place to be, to look at these people. They're walking around the room, they're walking around the buildings, they're walking around some of these rest homes and other places, and they're not really seen. They're almost kind of invisible because they're wearing the same uniforms. They're the ones that are picking up the kind of, or cleaning up, your family members that have kind of, got their kind of different things happening from a physical perspective. They're cleaning their face, they're cleaning their nose, they're cleaning up their dribble, their mouth. So, your loved ones sort of coming to end of life, but these people are around continually clearing, cleaning, and providing just a little bit of dignity at the end, which is quite a nice place to be, really. And I guess if you are a carer or a caregiver and you're listening to this conversation, then you probably sit back and think, this is the thing. Nobody recognizes me. Everyone's there because they're worried about their loved one or their family member that is ill or coming to end of life, and is expected that people are in there to help and to clean and do all the jobs that they do. But again, it's kind of like a thankless task in that way, really. And I guess even family members kind of forget that it's a real person that comes into that room of your loved one and helps them and cleans them and talks to them and provides them a little bit of dignity in their kind of difficult hours, really. And for some people, of course, it's the last hours. And this, I think, is where we kind of talk about the conversations about, does spirit exist? If you know someone that's coming to their end and their kind of grains of sand are running out, then they are going to transition back to spirit. They're about to die and about to pass. And if we can kind of have a conversation with them at that kind of difficult time in their life to say, look, this is just a change of frequency now. You drop the physical body, take your last breath, your spiritual energy, it's going to change vibration, move back to spirit, and your guides are going to be there to walk with you, to hold your hand, to take you across. And when you eventually arrive back in this different frequency that we can kind of call home or spirit, then all of your family members, your ancestors, all of the people that have passed are going to be there waiting for you. And there's kind of a little party probably to have. And I know that Chen said to me and showed me quite a few times when he's walked people across that bridge, in my own family members and other people that we've worked with, that, you know, it's not a thing to be afraid of. It should be something that we think the person's been here, they've had the physical life, they've done the things that they were here to do, whatever age that happens to be. And of course, for some people, it's quite a young age as well. So we kind of think about old people passing, but we must remember that there are younger people that pass early, or we see it as early. But if they've come here to do a certain thing, and they've done that thing, regardless of their age, whether they're 5 or 10 or 15 or 20, and however the ending happens, that is the end of their physical life, and it's probably one that they've been involved in to choose that ending. And therefore, they do need to then transition back to spirit and kind of walk back into that different vibration. And this is one of the reasons that we kind of started one of our services, actually, which is kind of like the beloved one, home check or you know, walk backwards, really, is that for people that have got someone that's died and they don't know if they've made it back home, so they're not earthbound, you know, we can check in with Chen will tell us that person's still earthbound, he'll take them on and move them back over, or he comes back and says, yep, that person's fine, they've made the transition, they're back at home, and everything's good. So I think, and again, of course, all mediums, certainly all of the SRA mediums, can do these sorts of things. So it's worth bearing in mind that there are quite a lot of services that we as spiritual mediums and spiritual people can offer to help other people understand what's going on from a spiritual perspective with their family, with their loved ones, and obviously take them on that transition. I know we've got things like death dealers that we can talk about, people that are there to be with someone when they die and when they pass. And that's quite a humbling job as well, I would imagine, to be there on the moment that person takes their last breath and just see them across to the other side. I'm just going to say hi to Nadine. Thanks for joining, Nadine. Good to hear you. Well, good to see you're on here, as opposed to hear you, because of course we can't hear you. So we're just talking about carers, really, and caregivers, and the concept of when people pass, kind of what happens and what the caregiver is there to do. So I think from my perspective, we've been through a list of things that the people that are in the caring industry can do on a daily basis, just to think about protecting themselves and the people that go in to be caring for people they're around. And of course, when we talk about funerals and things and that aspect, again, there are still people there that aren't part of the immediate family that are there to help the family, you know, whether it's a cremation or a burial. So they're in the energy, they're in people's energy that's very exaggerated, very stressful. Lots of people are very upset. There's a lot of negative feelings, negative emotions that you're going to pick up on. So again, if you do a job, if you're an undertaker, or if you're part of the church or part of that kind of industry, it's the same concepts. Again, spiritually protecting yourself from other people's energy, so that you don't go home taking home everybody else's feelings of stress and the negative aspects of that side of things, really. So again, if we look across society, there's a list of jobs and people that we want to protect ourselves from, so that we can go to work, do our job, hold our energy, keep our mental state clear and sovereign and protected, and then come home to our families. And we don't want to bring things home with us, because obviously we know that discarnate spirit and other energies are out there, and they can kind of follow us home. So if you work in a hospital or one of these kind of caring establishments, just thinking about, again, keeping yourself clear when you leave the hospital. So again, I thought out to your guides, to the team, can you clear any interference? Can you clear my energy to make sure I don't take home, a discarnate spirit or some of the type of negative energy? So when you jump in your car, you're driving home to your family, you need to be coming home cleansed and clear spiritually, of course, as well as physically, really. And this is where we need to start to think about just maintaining that boundary of protection. And learning these tips and techniques is simple. So everybody can do these things. Everybody can carry some crystals in the car, can ground themselves, can put themselves in a protected bubble of light, can set boundaries, can clear, wash your hands, sea salt, showers, all sorts of things. They just make a big difference. And again, cleansing your house, cleansing your space. So on a sort of bi-weekly basis, it's good to kind of smudge your house and your property. So just buy some smudge, whatever type of smudge you like, or incense, anything really that has that sort of quality. Start burning it, open the windows, open the doors, and just go around the house basically and just let the smoke kind of clear the space. And do that with intention. So put the thought in, especially to your guides and team, that you're using your intention to clear space. We're using smudge and smoke to do that in the same way that our ancestors did. We think about Indians and natives and tribes, they use smoke, they use fire to clear space, again with intention. So we can do the same things. We go around the house, burning incense. Again, you don't need any particular tools. I tend to use a little kind of copper bowl just because it catches the ash and it stops Jane being annoyed there's a mess around the house after we've finished. But effectively, you can burn anything in a bowl of any type, really, or a plate or something, and just let the smoke waft around the room. You can use feathers to kind of flick smoke around the room with intention to clear the space energetically, or you can blow it with your mouth. So again, these things are simple. They cost nothing at all to do, but you actually feel the change. When you walk back into your house after you've smudged it and you close the windows, you'll feel the energy is clear. It feels clear mentally. It feels clear energetically. And those of us that are quite sensitive, I'm obviously quite sensitive to energy. I can pick up on feelings and places. If I walk in a room, I can instantly know whether the energy in there feels good or it feels stagnant and stale and quite bad. And so can Jane. We're both the same in that way. And instead, we went to a place called Shaftesbury, actually. When was that? Last weekend. And we were just wandering around. It was a lovely place. But we picked up on some quite dark energy. And we went into a pub for lunch. And when we were sat in the pub, Jane looked up and said, God, it's really dark and stale and almost like sticky in here. And I kind of laughed and said, I've picked up on a few things moving about. So we were basically clearing this pub kind of with intention, whilst before we actually ate, of course. And then I went to ChatGPT to actually ask the history of this particular pub. And it goes back a long time to the time of kind of, King Arthur, I think, and again, different royalty, different kings. So back into kind of the old, really old days of medieval existence. And we could feel that old energy was just like a sticky kind of goo in the whole space. And we were struggling to clear it, to be honest. It didn't feel great. And by the time we'd finished our food, which was very, very good, we were both quite happy to get out of the pub and go off out into the space. And then we decided we'd go somewhere different, because obviously Shaftesbury in the UK is a lovely place in Wiltshire. But for us, being quite empathic and quite sensitive energetically, we were picking up on a lot of this old energy, this old negative vibration. Lots of obviously bad things have happened in that area over time, certainly going back to the medieval days. So clearing your space and keeping your space clear is really quite fundamental. And if we think about hospitals, care homes, mental health establishments, they don't do these things. They don't have spiritual people going in there clearing space. And that's kind of the odd thing, really. And it's something I'm kind of hoping that we can do, all of us that are listening to these sorts of podcasts over time, is that eventually we get to a point that someone listens to these podcasts in these establishments and thinks, okay, at the end of the day or the end of the week, let's get a kind of spiritual cleansing done. Let's bring someone in with a big bowl. Let's create some smoke, or we use sound. Obviously, generally you can't use smoke in hospitals and things because you've got smoke alarms, but we can use sound. So we can go in there with different things like tinctures, singing bowls, things that create sound and actually clear the energy. And if we could walk around the wards, walk around the rooms, the operating theatres and things, and just clear the space and clear the energy, and also clear whatever's there. There will be negative things that hang around in these places that we know. There will be discarnate spirits and things that are in there too. So again, having a kind of spiritual cleansing team that could go into hospitals, mental health establishments, care homes, anywhere there is fear and negativity, which is what kind of attracts these energies to those spaces, we can clear and we can change the vibration, change the state. And of course, it will change the environment for the people that are in there. So people that are in there, the care workers obviously will definitely notice a change. And I think it's one of the things that's on the list of things to do, really, is that we're trying to promote this concept that these things don't cost anything. They're kind of pretty free to do. And if some of these establishments, would allow teams of people to go in and just do a space clearing and then see and almost run a mini research project on how people feel when they enter the care homes and how they feel when they leave the care homes after they've been cleansed and cleared and protected, I think there would be quite a big difference to everyone, especially to the people that work there already, and of course to the people that are passing there too. So Geraldine Galagos is here. Hi Geraldine, I see you've got a question. I have a question. How does one help a person if they hear them screaming elsewhere, but their physical body is right next to me? Is it possible someone like a warlock to take parts of people's mind? Interesting question. It's a good question as well, really. I think, again, you're obviously telepathically psychic. So if we're mediumistic, psychic, telepathic, we obviously can talk to other spirit, other energies, and other entities too, of course. And you can pick up on these things. And we pick up on these sometimes during the day, and sometimes in our sleep state, we can still hear voices or still hear things. So really, from that perspective, if the physical body is right next to you and you're hearing them in their mind talking to you, then obviously it's a case for you, I guess, to develop your kind of spiritual telepathy or protect yourself. So obviously I'm a medium. If I walk around open all day, I'd be hearing and talking to all sorts of things that would probably not be great, really. So I tend to keep myself in my protected space, protected bubble. My telepathy is basically turned off unless I want to turn it on. If I'm talking to Chen, then he is my gatekeeper. So he's there to kind of protect whatever is trying to connect or talk to me. So if I'm trying to connect to someone that's passed, he kind of allows the connection, almost like a firewall, really. But the gatekeeper role is quite important for mediums and psychics. And it sounds like you're in that space, that you are hearing things in one way or another. It's just learning how you kind of manage that. And of course, there are courses and spiritual help available to teach people that are psychic or mediumistic how to control their mediumistic skill set, really. And of course, for a lot of people, this just happens overnight. People start to hear things. And of course, we know that drugs and those sorts of things obviously break down or perforate the auric field. And then people that have done lots of drugs or even pharmaceuticals, normal pharmaceuticals, can cause the same problems. So lots of people become mediumistic by default when they're taking different types of substance that breaks the etheric protection. And then, of course, they're not able to control the conversations, control what they're talking to and what they're hearing. So again, that is kind of like another conversation, different to this one, really. But the same sort of lines about how you protect yourself from other spiritual energies effectively. And again, same sorts of techniques of bubbles of light, speaking to the guides, protection, sea salt, obviously trying to maintain your own spiritual sovereignty and your own protection. So same things kind of are in the mix, really, from that perspective. Okay, so let's get Chen in to have a chat and see what he has to say. And I'm sure he'll probably have a alternative view on protection, caregiving, that kind of thing. So I'm just going to set my alarm a second. Bear with me. Anyone else has got any questions, just pop them in the chat and we can hopefully cover them, which will be good. Must I just set my Chen alarm, so to speak? Okay, so that's running, which is good. The Hope's here. Hi, Hope. Good to have you on board. If any of you want to put in the chat where you're from, it's always nice to see where people are actually located. I know most of you guys in the US, but it's quite interesting to see which part of the US and where you're actually from a state perspective, really, which will be good. And I will hand over to Chen and see you in a bit. Good day to all, and thank you, as always, for giving me the opportunity to be able to come through in this particular manner and converse with you all. So first, I would like to say welcome to this particular podcast. We are getting quite well practiced now how we do these things, and I certainly, from my perspective, am finding it a lot easier to be able to have some quite difficult conversations with people and to understand how you all perceive the conversations that we have. Because, of course, from my perspective, I don't have a human physical body. I exist in a spiritual space, a conscious energy, basically, almost. Almost to think about a mist in the room, something that doesn't have any physicality to a certain degree. So sometimes, from a spiritual perspective, we as guides can find it quite difficult to remember what it's like to be in a physical body, to have thoughts that you have in the way you have them, because your energy is being manipulated because of physical experience. The things that are around you, the people that are around you, everything has an influence on you. Whereas when you have no physical body, of course, that influence disappears and you just have your own conscious energy, so to speak. So sometimes it's good that I can be directed myself in terms of the choices and the topics of conversation that we're going to engage in on a weekly basis. So caregiving and caregivers. Now, I think it was young Jane's idea today that thought this would be good. And of course, as young Andrew says, that this is the angel in the physical incarnation, people that look after someone else, that are there night and day, 24 hours a day to help someone on their journey, of course, when they die and they pass back to spirit. These people exist in every walk of life, in every society, in every culture, every colour, every creed, every religion. There is always someone in that space. Think of native people, they still have the same role, someone that's looking after people at the time of illness, someone that is looking after people at the time of death, at the time of passing, and of course all of the in-between. So, but young Andrew was quite correct, this role should be seen to be a wondrous role. You give your time and your energy, your emotional support to people that are really in need, people that are going through trauma, people that are coming to the end of their life in fear, generally for most people. So this role should be a degree qualified role that's upheld within society for the best people, for people that are empathic, people that are sensitive, people that have a spiritual connection to others. But of course, in your societies, generally, these roles are seen to be the bottom of the list. A job that someone just turns up, quite often is doing some dirty work, some cleansing, some cleaning, things that people don't want to do. But you're there as a person to help people coming to either the end of their life or through trauma, difficult times. And it's not for everybody. Not everyone has the capacity to feel the pain that someone else is in, to be able to support and to whisper the wise words or the humble words at the right time in someone's very stressful experience. Because, of course, most people, whether they're ill or they're going through the end of times for them in a passing situation, knowing what to say, how to say things to them and to the family is a skill set. It's a very important skill set. And only what we would say are these angels in real life or angels that have been hidden are there to do that job. But of course, it's a very poorly paid job with very difficult hours to work. But it should be upheld. It should be a job that society gives importance to. It should be a job that sets a precedence because it's working with people. It's a real job doing real things. But of course, in your societies today, everything's upside down. So the people that do the least get paid the most. Think about directors of corporations. As young Andrew said, most of them spend their time playing golf. They don't even know how their corporations work. If they didn't come to work, there would be no difference. Most of you would not even notice if the directors of some big corporation don't turn up for work one day. But if the toilet cleaner didn't turn up, everyone that works in the offices would notice because they wouldn't wish to stay in the office. So again, everything is topsy-turvy, upside down. And caregiving and caregivers at the moment is a lowly paid job, seen to be the bottom of society. But this, of course, will change as your species, humanity, evolves over time. And this will change because there are changes happening in the mental constructs of people. There are enormous changes from a spiritual perspective. Spirituality is coming online. If you think back 10, 20 years, spirituality was connected to substance. People would take substances, they would take different drugs to have a spiritual experience. Now you can have a spiritual experience without any drugs at all, using the core fundamentals of your orchestrated mental mindset and conscious awareness. You can have spiritual connections. People can channel, as young Andrew is doing today, a different spiritual entity through his physical body that can verbalize and speak in the way that we are. So spirituality is really starting to come online, and more of you are being tainted and touched by spiritual things. Some of them not so good, some of them very good. But lots of you that are interested in spirituality are in this caregiver state. You're people that are empathic, sensitive. You're here to help other people. You're the person that drops their bag when someone falls over in the street. Some people pick their phones up and record it. Other people drop their bag and run to help. Most people, I would suggest, that listen to this conversation are of the drop your bag kind. You're the ones that will help others at their time of need, at their time of difficulty. And this puts you in that caregiving group of people that are empathic, sensitive, and connected. And caregivers are becoming very spiritually switched on, especially people that are there to caregive at the end of someone's life. When you're with someone and that someone, that person that's had a life is leaving, as young Andrew said, the transition, the changing frequency, the dying, the physical body is no more. It goes back to its carbon-based life form. It's either cremated generally or buried. But the spirit, the actual spirit consciousness leaves that physicality, and that spiritual consciousness is in the transition point to move back to a different vibratory frequency that we, of course, call spirit. And I go and come continually, as you all know. I come into the physical body to perceive, to provide information, and then I leave again. And young Andrew's conscious awareness comes back in. It never really leaves per se, but in the way that you think about it, it's coming and going. But this is a time when, if you're with someone and they're about to transition, the spirit's edging out slowly. Different pharmaceutical medications for end of life help that to happen. They help the physical body to turn off and to stop, and that releases the spirit to basically let go and move. Now, of course, not all people do that. Some people that are very fear-based or very connected to someone in the physical don't want to leave. Think of a mother and daughter. The mother doesn't want to go. She wants to continue to be here to protect her daughter. So quite often, even though the physical body is dying and closing down, they don't want to leave. So they're hanging on. They're still in that space. Now, the caregivers in the room are subjected to that energy, that person being in a very fearful state, not wanting to die, maybe foaming at the mouth, maybe trying to talk, but not able to talk. So there's an awful lot of fear, sometimes anger too. So the caregivers in the room are exposed to these energies. And of course, it affects them. It affects their fields. They may find themselves tearful. They may pick up on the sensitivity of that situation and find that they are brought to tears themselves. Then, of course, they need to go off to a room somewhere with their colleagues and have a cup of tea or something to calm themselves down. And of course, it's affected them emotionally. It's affected them mentally. And of course, the other thing that starts to happen, the people that work around these situations, is their field becomes impregnated with the negativity. So caregivers find themselves moving into depression, moving into anxiety, feeling worried to go to work, stressed about going to work, because their field is full of all of this negativity that they're picking up day in and day out, working with people that are very ill, in pain, or people that are transitioning, dying, and moving back to spirit. So the caregiver, that person that we're talking of, is so exposed to negative energies. Think about a person in the room, a caregiver that sat at the back. The family's there, they're all crying and upset. There's a lot of emotion. The person that's dying is very angry that they're dying, they're leaving, or very negative. all of this negative emotion is swirling around that room. Now, the caregiver that's not in the process, it's not their family member, are in the energies continually. They're the ones that are going to pick up all of this negativity. So they're the ones that should be the most spiritually protected. So they should be inside their protected bubble of light with their guides. As young Andrew said earlier, the gatekeepers there to protect them from that energy and keep them clear. But of course, most caregivers aren't particularly spiritual or haven't found that these sorts of techniques and tools will help them. So of course, they're opening themselves to all of these energies and frequencies. They tend to work very long hours. And then, of course, when they go home, they're completely fatigued and tired. They've got lots of negative energy, stale, stagnant energy in their field. They've got the stress of the people that are dying, or the people that are passing, or the people that are ill baked into their field. They've got the emotions and probably the wants and the requirements of the family. Can you look after my mother? Can you make sure she's okay? Can you make sure my father's okay and let him know we're here? There's so many requirements that get pushed onto the caregivers. No one talks about it. No one understands it. The people that run the establishments don't understand really what's going on, because they're only looking at the financial aspects of running the operation. Most probably, they're not thinking about the mental state and the wellness of the people that do the work, the caregiver. So the caregiver is the person that's so underrated really in this whole situation, which is why they need to protect themselves from other people's energy. Why they need to go home and have a physical cleanse, a physical shower. They need to go and spend, as young Andrew said, a couple of moments on the bed to just decongest, clear themselves, ground themselves, clear the energy, put a thought out to their guides and their team to clear them, to remove, and of course disconnect any interference that they've picked up during the day. There are a lot of energies out there that we could talk of that have a very low vibration, and they'll be in these spaces, in these rooms. So if you could see a room that someone's about to die in and transition, and the family members are in there crying and they're upset, and there's a lot of stress and probably anger for the person that's about to leave, this effectively is a vibratory state that's low, it's quite negative. The caregivers sat in there too, all coming and going, but energies will be in that room to basically pick up on the negativity and effectively feed off that vibration, that frequency. So think about fish. If you think of a pond full of fish and you stand by the pond, and the fish in the pond knows that you're there to feed them. So every day you sprinkle in some food. As soon as you walk up to that pond, the fish are there. They're waiting to be fed. They know they're going to be fed because you do it every day. This is the same concept with negative energies in care homes, hospitals, these sorts of places. They know people are about to come in. They know that the care workers are working in those spaces, and they're there to connect and basically feed off of energies. So if your field is open and you're not in your protected bubble as we visualize things, then these energies will connect to you. They will suck your vibration, your frequency from you. You will go home tired. If things get worse over time, as you do these jobs for years and years, your vibration comes down and down. You feel more and more fatigued and tired. And then, of course, people start to have intrusive thoughts or start to go down the whole line that the negative side would push. And we know this. We know many caregivers end up either laid off, unable to work, too tired and fatigued, too mentally drained and fatigued to be able to work. This is because they haven't been protecting their field. They haven't been protecting their mental space. They haven't been protecting their energy, because, of course, energy is everything. It's a vibratory frequency, and everything exists in and with energy. So you are an energy being. Each one of you that are listening here are an energy being, your vehicle, and you have energy as part of your frequency, part of your vibration. And you need to protect that energy, because there are lots of energies out there that will steal, fatigue, and pull energy from you. So if you're in your protected bubble of light, effectively, you're going to feel well, you're going to feel vibrant, you're going to have energy, you're going to feel good about yourself, your mental state will be positive. If you have this eroded, you'll start to notice odd feelings, odd thoughts, odd issues that start to pop up. Many of them mental, of course, because we're talking about negative energies that change your state of mind, change your emotional space and how you feel yourself. And this is the whole point, that what we're trying to do in these conversations, and generally from a spiritual perspective, is to educate people to understand that you're not just your physical body, your physical being, you're a spiritual energy, and you can protect yourself from other things, and you can have a wonderful life. Positive thought when you walk in sovereignty. So if you hold your own spiritual sovereignty, meaning your energy is just your own, you'll notice your whole life changes. Everything around you will change in a positive way because you're not being manipulated by these other negative frequencies or energies that we talk of. And holding your own spiritual sovereignty should be what we teach our children. Children from 4 to 5 years old should understand the concept of spiritual sovereignty, climbing into their bubble of light at night before they go to bed, protecting their dream space, their sleeping space, their sleeping state, protecting their mental health. This should be happening at very young ages. But of course, by design, it doesn't do as yet. And this is what we're trying to provide education for now, is that mental health, the mental health epidemic that you're seeing across the whole world, every race, every color, every culture, every society, every religion, every single one is being affected from a mental health perspective. Now ask, why is that happening? When did that start happening, and why is it happening now? And the answer is, it's happening now because the frequencies of the planet are changing, and these negative manipulating energies are rising to the surface. We're starting to see the sleight of hand behind the scenes, and they're affecting people, and people are starting to notice that they can affect people. And of course, people that have broken etheric fields through different things, whether it be fatigue or illness or drugs or substance, are being affected by these different frequencies that have always been here. You've just never really known about them. And we're trying to bring this now into the current conversation, that you're not just these physical people, physical beings that exist on this round planet that you assume you are. And of course, you assume the planet's round, because that's a whole different conversation. But the concept is, you're not just a physical being, you're a spiritual energy having a physical human life. And there are other energies that don't have a physical body that are around you continually, and they impact and change your emotional state, how you think, how you feel, and how you live. And this is part of the reason that it's my job and my dictate to work with Andrew, to connect with Dr. Palmer behind the scenes, and of course young Jonathan Webster, and to build the Spirit Release Academy to teach and train the right practitioners how to deal with these energies, to clear them from people, to clear the spaces, and to make the changes that we need. So we're all working together, but caregivers are at the sharp end of the point. They are at the place, and they need to learn to protect their energy, because their whole life will change and become so much more positive. And when we start to see things change over the time, and it's coming soon, then these caregivers, these people that are on the sharp end, will actually move up in society. They will see, and they will be seen to be people that are here to help humanity or species evolve and ascend into a different frequency. So at the moment, they may be at the bottom of the pile, but of course, in reality, from our perspective, they're at the top of the pile. These are the nicest people, the most empathic, sensitive, loving people, here to help other people and put generally themselves second. And this, of course, is another part of the conversation, is that we do teach service to self first, because you need to service yourself, protect yourself, and then you can help other people. So if we think about most caregivers, they give all of themselves away, and then of course they end up fatigued and tired, and that's the end of their contribution. But if they were in their protected space, looking after and managing themselves in the right way, they could do so much more. And of course they would be able to last so much longer in the jobs that they do and the things that they do. So these are conversations that we are slowly starting to float into the conscious awareness of the people like yourselves that listen to these conversations and podcasts. And things are changing, and they're changing quite quickly. And we're here to orchestrate that change. So I think from my perspective, that's my opinion and conversation around caregiving, caregivers, and how caregivers can help to protect and look after themselves energetically. So I will say good day to all and bring young Andrew back, and we will look forward to next week's conversation. Good day. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm back. So alarm's not gone off, which is always good. So Chen's actually on time. Perfect. Okay, so look at some questions. So Geraldine's got a few questions here. So the fellow did something to them where I heard them flying in like spirit of my guess, and their body stayed and didn't come back into the body until next morning. Not exactly sure what you're kind of relating to there, Geraldine. Probably an out-of-body experience or something, I'm guessing. But again, when we go to sleep at night, I tend to put a thought out to Chen to say, my conscious mind's about to go to sleep. Over to you. You can basically provide protection from any interference. Again, it's just worth putting that thought out to your own guides. If you've got children that are going to sleep, just ask the guides or their guides to protect them consciously before you go to sleep, basically. And of course, sea salt, sprinkle some fine sea salt around the bedroom. It's always good. Salt lamps are good. I've got a couple in here that was on the go because they look nice. They sort of glow with a kind of nice bright orange. But again, as they get hot, they're giving off, tiny, tiny particles of salts that's in the air. So again, it's good to keep the space clear. Tinctures are good. So those two little bells that you can bang together that we talk about often, they're also good to kind of clear the space. So you could do those sort of in the evening before you go to sleep or something. So there's quite a few things that we can consider to do that are just basically no cost to you whatsoever, just to kind of provide extra protection and kind of clear that space, really. So I think Hope's talking about being a death doula, which will be cool. That'll be interesting, Hope. A nurse by trade. Fantastic. So if you're a death doula or you're doing that job, I'd be interested to talk to you. So we can always do a podcast together and cover what that kind of job means, how you learn to do that job, and how you, from my perspective, how you protect yourself really when you're in that space and you're taking someone through death or the last few moments of their life. Then it's quite a humbling place to be. Also quite a sensitive place to be. So that will be an interesting conversation, really. So Camille is here too. Hi Camille, thanks for joining. I'm trying to do all of the protective things, but seems they still get in, especially curses. Where are they coming from? I do work in skilled nursing homes. Interesting. So cursing is quite an interesting conversation. So the way we kind of see cursing really is when I view someone from a psychic perspective, I tend to see like a stream of energy coming in, normally from the right, which kind of means it's an active this life curse. And what Chen will do is he will basically put someone in a protected bubble of light, block that stream of energy, and then reflect it straight back to the person that's sending it, which generally gets them to stop quite quickly because they get their own energy back effectively. So again, we tend to work with the kind of block and reflect method when we talk about cursing, which is certainly worth doing. So you could do the same, Camille, ask your guides to block the stream of energy coming into you and then just reflect it back to the person. It's kind of non-interactive. We're not kind of going to war with people that are cursing. And of course, when we talk about cursing, which is a whole nother subject really, think of a curse as just energy. So if you think about someone in a bad way, if somebody cuts you up in the car and you call them names and you think about them in a bad way, you send them a blast of negative energy that hits their etheric field, and basically, they will probably think the same back. But your kind of ill will kind of comes into cursing, really, whereas cursing by default, of course, can be a bit more conscious, and there are people that will use a lot of negative energy to send people that negativity that we would call cursing or hexing. And then, of course, we've got ancestral curses, curses from the past, curses from past lives or previous incarnations, which is a whole kind of different conversation, really. But I think if you're going into nursing homes, it's worth going in a little protected bubble. Thought out to your guides, can you basically remove and clear any interference, protect me? Just those two things that cost nothing at all will probably make a big difference to your day, really. Okay, so Geraldine's just saying that she's got a room full of sea salt, which is good. Sea salt's good, and of course it's cheap as well. You can buy a whole thing of fine sea salt for what would be sort of less than $1 really. So it's not an expensive thing to use and to have. Okay, so Geraldine's talking about the course. Camille saying thanks, which is always good, and Hope saying I'd like to imagine myself surrounded by mirrors that are facing outwards to reflect any energy sent back to the sender. And that's quite a good way to do it, Hope, actually, is that kind of reflection concept. So again, being in a kind of mirrored bubble of light, energy hits the mirror, sends it straight back to where it came from. That's quite a good way, and we teach that on quite a lot of our courses. So the same sorts of ideas, same sorts of things. And none of these things are difficult, and none of these things should be perceived to be difficult, because we can all do them. It's just that we don't understand how protective they are and how important they are, really. And I think that is the thing. When we start to spend more time working spiritually, you realize your own spiritual maintenance and sovereignty is actually the top list of things that we should be considering on a day-to-day basis, and trying to walk in that sovereign energy is where we want to be, because that gives us a clean, clear, a clarity of mind, a clear mental health perspective. Our thoughts are our own. We don't have our energy or our thoughts being manipulated by the things. So spiritual sovereignty is definitely the main conversation, really. And of course, if you're caregiving, you want to be in your own energy, not other people's primarily. So I think with that, folks, we'll bring this conversation to a close, which is 56 minutes. And we try and do about an hour, which is good. So thanks for joining. And to all of you guys that listen to this in the podcast or on Catch Up or Spotify or Apple or Amazon or wherever else that you basically subscribe to kind of pull these podcasts in. Because I know that everyone's listening to things on YouTube and all over the place these days. So we try and provide this information in as many in podcast formats and platforms that we can, so that basically the right people are able to kind of assimilate these sorts of things into their life and just have a listen. So thanks for joining, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next week. Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.